Hey, good morning, guys. Welcome to VA Fridays. So I wanted to go over the Washington State Homes for Heroes program. It hasn't been passed yet, but I want to kind of talk about, how it is great, but it also may not really work with VA buyers because it is allowed for service members and things like that. So before I get right into it, I'm gonna do a quick dad joke. Dad joke today is uh, I just ate a burnt Hawaiian pizza. I should have used aloha temperature. Aloha temperature. Get it? Pew pew pew. All right, so getting right into it. So I was reading RPAC just sent out this little graphic of all the bills that were denied and passed and all that stuff. And one of the things that came to my attention was the Homes for Heroes program that Washington State is looking to pass. Now, a lot of people really like the idea of having this, and I think it's a great program. However, I think with VA buyers, it's going to be less used. It's great for first responders. I believe there's some teachers and child care development people. Like there's a lot of people in education that also get the benefit of this bill. And how this bill works is basically it's $25,000 or up to 5% of the loan amount, specifically the loan amount. So yeah, this is the amount they get for down payment and closing cost. I think there's some other things that goes with it, but that's what I was able to read in the bill that was of value to me, at least. So it's only up to 5% or $25,000, whichever is less. So really the amount that they get most is up to like a $500,000 loan. So how this is great for everybody else, but really people who have access to the VA loan may not really use it, because here's the thing about these grant programs, because it is effectively a grant. It's very similar to the Washington State Housing Finance Program, the grant and all that stuff. It works pretty similarly as far as I can tell. Now, again, this is they haven't fully announced what the makeup of it is, but there's a bunch of programs like this all across the United States. So why does it not always work with VA buyers? One, it'll be paid back in a refinance or selling the house. Okay, so it's not like it's forgiven. They just give free money away. That's not how this works. It rides on the lien of the property. So it rides with the property. There's this up to $25,000 that rides on top of the property. So with VA buyers specifically, if they're doing 100% financing, right? A loan, let's say they're buying a house for $400,000 and they get a loan for $400,000, right? That's the loan itself, right? Not including the grant. And then the other thing is that if they don't have a VA disability rating, they have a VA funding fee, which means now the loan is around $409, $410, okay, on a $400,000 house. Let's say if they use this grant program to pay closing costs, let's say it's $10,000. So now all the liens or the money owed on the house goes up from like $410 to $420, okay. Now, for specifically, if you're working in a very high concentration of active duty clients, they're going to owe $420 on a house that's worth $400,000 when they buy it. It's going to take at least 2 to 3 years for them, maybe 4, maybe 5 years before they can actually sell the house and may not have to pay anything for it. So, because if you're expecting 5% a year, that's about $40,000 roughly, $20,000 a year. So they would 1 year would be enough to pay for whatever's left on loan without an agent, right? No selling fees, not including all the seller closing costs and stuff like that. And then another 2 or 3 years to get another $80,000 so that they can enough to make some money off of it and pay for all the real estate fees depending on the new purchase price of the house. And then they have to pay back that rent as well when it's sold. So that's one way to look at it if they were to use it that way. Now, what ends up with a lot of VA clients is that they end up just getting their closing costs paid within the purchase price of the house, which is typically within the appraisal value. So that way they're not technically underwater that much. Now, if they don't have a VA funding fee, then they wouldn't be underwater at all. So it depends on how underwater they are when they buy the house. Now, you could argue that if they use the $25,000 grant, they could use it to pay closing costs and down payment. They could do that, but the main out-of-pocket cost for a VA buyer is closing costs, not down payment. So let's say they put all that $25,000 toward the loan amount, right? Sure, it's a $375,000 loan now, right? What or sorry, it's only 5%, so it'll only be $20,000, right? So now it's 380, but they are still going to have closing costs to pay for that as well. So they're going to say, so a $20,000 down payment might save them about $100 on their payment, whereas they still have about 10, maybe $15,000, and probably like $10 or $12,000 to pay out of pocket for closing cost. Now you can argue both, but you're still adding more money owed on the property than than you need to. So that's why with specifically active duty VA buyers, it's not really that beneficial, just because how much money is owed, and typically their orders are only about 3 years. Some of them don't have the stomach to rent, or don't want to rent, or can't rent, whatever the reason, because they may not have enough reserves or whatever the situation. So I feel like this Homes for Heroes program for VA buyers who are specifically active duty, even those who are veterans, this may not actually work for them, just because they already have access to a great home loan program where everything can be included inside of their appraisal value to include closing costs. Whereas this would add on top of the loan, which is already past the appraisal value. So that's one of the things. But I think for anybody else, whoever, first responders, educators, there's a whole list of people that this benefits to outside of those who are veterans or service members that could really benefit from this program. I just think with VA buyers, it's less. It's less of a benefit because the home loan program they already have, it's already pretty great. So I believe it's an option. It also depends on how long the family's going to be in the house. If they plan on being in this house for the next 7 to 10 years, then sure, they could consider using this program. But it's really hard to predict that, especially those who live in Washington State, because it's such a transitory state that people move in, move out. They all of a sudden realize it's getting too crowded, so they move somewhere else. So it all depends on that client's plans. Typically, I'd say most buyers, when I say most buyers who are non-VA are the typical buyers in the nation. They're usually in the house to 5 to 7 years. VA buyers tend to move a little more often. It's what it seems like, just because they have the ability to. They don't have to save as much. The financial need or the financial requirement to get another house is a lot less for a VA buyer than any other buyer. So they have the ability to move more times than others just because they have the ability to do so. So something to consider. It hasn't been passed yet. It hasn't been officially executed yet, but just keep an eye out for that. As far as this Homes for Heroes program in Washington State, that yes, you can use it to advertise, but it's not that great of a program. It's not as significant for VA buyers as it is for everybody else that can use this program. So just my thoughts there on that program. So it just depends on ultimately it depends on how long they plan on being in the house, because they just need to be in the house long enough for it to make sense. Otherwise, that's all I got for you guys. Hopefully you guys have a great weekend, and happy Valentine's Day to everyone. I won't be doing anything for Valentine's Day specifically. It's just gonna be another Friday for me. Otherwise, you guys have a great weekend. Talk to you guys soon. Nuke out.